The radar screens burst at 5:17 hours, 60 contacts, not 10 a turn, not 20. 60 Iranian speedboats appearing from the pre-dawn darkness of the Strait of Hormuz like a plague of steel and diesel fury. They came in formation, bows aimed directly at the USS Abraham Lincoln, the most powerful warship ever to cut through these dangerous waters. No radio contact, no warning, just 60 Bogomar and Siraj-class fast attack craft accelerating to combat speed. Their engines screaming defiance as they carved white wakes across the dark Gulf waters. This was not a probe. This was not harassment. This was a complete coordinated assault designed to overwhelm, penetrate, and destroy. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard crews manning those boats believed their commander promised that speed and numbers would crash through American defenses like a tidal wave through a sandcastle. They had trained for months, memorized attack patterns, practiced evasive maneuvers. What they did not know was that they were about to face the most advanced killing machine ever assembled on the open ocean. The tactical action officer aboard Lincoln did not hesitate. At 5:18, his voice cut through the combat information center like a blade. Launch alert, fighters. Get the helos airborne. Battle stations. The carrier flight deck burst into controlled chaos. 2 FA-18 Super Hornets screamed down the catapults, afterburners, igniting the dawn with twin pillars of fire. Seconds later, 2 MH-60R Seahawk helicopters clawed into the sky, their door gunners already checking weapons as they climbed to attack altitude. From 15,000 feet, the Super Hornet pilots had a clear view of the swarm. 60 boats arranged in a modified chevron formation, closing fast. The lead pilot targeting pod locked onto the formation, feeding real-time imagery to every screen in the strike group. Lincoln Falcon 1, I have visual on 60. Say again, 60 hostile contacts inbound your position. They are carrying rockets and heavy weapons. This is no drill. The carrier group commander response was ice cold, weapons free. Engage and destroy. At 5:19, the Iranian formation split like a living organism adapting to threat. 40 boats maintained their death charge toward Lincoln. 12 peeled toward the destroyer USS Mason. 8 accelerated toward the USS Thomas Hudner. They were moving at 70 knots now, some of the newer boats, hitting 75. Bow wakes brilliant in the strengthening light. Each speedboat bristled with weapons, rocket launchers on improvised mounts, heavy machine guns, maybe anti-ship missiles. The boats spread wider, making themselves harder to target. The Revolutionary Guard crews were good, better than earlier encounters. They were splitting the American defenses, forcing simultaneous engagement across multiple directions. But the Americans were already inside their decision loop. The Super Hornets dove from altitude like hunting eagles. Falcon 1 rolled inverted at 8,000 feet and pulled his nose toward the ocean. The targeting pod locked on the lead elements of the swarm. At 6 miles out, he fired. An AGM-65 Maverick missile dropped from the wing pylon. The motor ignited, and it accelerated to supersonic speed in seconds. The infrared seeker found the hottest target in the formation, a Siraj-class boat with twin diesel engines roaring at maximum output. The missile struck the engine compartment at 1,200 feet per second. The boat did not just explode, it vanished. An orange-red fireball mushroomed upward, debris raining across a 100-yard radius. 2 nearby boats caught shrapnel. Their hulls punctured, crews diving into the water as their vessels began sinking. Falcon 2 engaged 3 seconds later. Another Maverick, another direct hit. The second boat shattered in a cascade of flame and twisted metal. The Iranian formation wavered for the first time. They had expected resistance. They had not expected destruction from 6 miles away, but the swarm kept coming. Revolutionary Guard commanders were screaming over radio frequencies, demanding their crews press the attack. 40 boats tightened formation and accelerated. Harder toward Lincoln. They were 5 miles out now, 4 miles, and 12 miles. Even with 2 boats destroyed, 58 remained, more than enough to overwhelm defenses if they reached weapons range. The Seahawk helicopters descended to 800 feet and spread wide, positioning themselves on the flanks of the swarm. The door gunners opened fire at 2,000 yards. M240 machine guns roared, 7.62 millimeter rounds pouring down range in sustained bursts. Tracers arced across the water like angry fireflies. The gunners walked their fire across the nearest boats, punching holes in fiberglass hulls, shattering windscreens, tearing through crew compartments. 1 boat veered wildly to starboard, its helmsman killed at the wheel. Another lost power as rounds severed fuel lines and destroyed the engine. A 3rd boat caught fire, flames spreading rapidly across the fuel-soaked deck. The Iranian swarm was bleeding boats, but they kept coming. 3 miles out now, 2.5 miles. They were entering the outer engagement envelope of the carrier group medium-range weapons. Aboard Thomas Hudner, the weapons officer locked the Mk-38 Bushmaster chain gun onto the 8 boats charging his position. At 2,500 yards, he opened fire. The 25mm cannon began its methodical work, firing 200 rounds per minute. High explosive rounds stitched across the water, each impact raising geysers of spray. The gunner corrected aim, leading the targets. The first burst connected with devastating effect. A speedboat bow exploded as 3 rounds pierced the hull in rapid succession. The boat flipped forward, stern rising into the air before slamming back down and capsizing completely. The second boat tried evasive maneuvers, zigzagging at maximum speed, but the computer-controlled targeting system anticipated every move. A sustained burst walked fire from stern to bow. The boat shuddered under the impacts, slowed and began taking water through dozens of punctures. The Cyclone-class patrol ship Chamal engaged simultaneously. Her Bushmaster locked onto runners attempting to flank the formation. The 25mm cannon thundered, sending explosive rounds screaming across 2,200 yards of open water. The first boat absorbed multiple hits before its fuel tank ignited. Flames engulfed the vessel in seconds. The second boat turned hard to evade, but turned directly into the gun-firing arc. 6 rounds impacted within 2 seconds. The fiberglass hull could not withstand military-grade explosive ammunition. The boat broke apart, literally separated into pieces that sank within seconds. The Super Hornets circled above like patient executioners, selecting targets systematically. Falcon 1 pickled off another Maverick at 5 miles. The missile tracked perfectly, slamming into a boat loaded with rocket launchers. The secondary explosion was spectacular as the Boto ordnance detonated, creating a fireball that consumed 2 nearby vessels in the expanding blast radius. Falcon 2 fired moments later, his missile impacting a command boat recognizable by its larger antenna array. The boat disintegrated, taking Revolutionary Guard tactical coordination with it, but 40 boats still surged forward, 2 miles out now. 90 seconds from weapons range, the Iranian crews could see Lincoln clearly, a massive gray wall of steel dominating the horizon. Some boats began erratic maneuvering, trying to complicate targeting solutions. Others accelerated even harder, pushing their engines beyond safe limits in a desperate sprint for launch range. The destroyer, USS Mason, joined the battle. Her forward 5-inch gun rotated smoothly, elevating to the calculated firing solution. The gun captain gave the order. The 5-inch naval gun fired, the concussion rippling across the water. The shell arced through the air and detonated 20 feet above a cluster of 3 speedboats. The air burst showered the boats with shrapnel. All 3 veered off course, hulls punctured. Crews wounded. 1 boat slowed to a crawl, dead in the water. The other 2 maintained speed but trailed smoke and debris. Mason fired again and again, each shell precisely targeted, each detonation claiming boats or forcing them to break formation. The 5-inch gun worked methodically through the Iranian formation, turning organized assault into scattered chaos. The Seahawks repositioned, diving low over the water. At 1,200 yards, the pilots had clear shots with their Hellfire missiles. The first Seahawk fired. The AGM-114 Hellfire dropped from the pylon, the motor ignited, and it accelerated toward a speedboat attempting to circle wide around the defensive screen. The laser-guided missile tracked flawlessly. Impact came at supersonic speed. The boat erupted in a massive explosion. The Hellfire-shaped charge warhead, designed to penetrate tank armor, made short work of thin fiberglass. Nothing remained but burning debris. The second Seahawk fired. Another Hellfire, another perfect hit, another. Boat destroyed. The helicopters were proving extremely destructive, combining mobility with precision firepower that could engage from angles the boats could not defend against. But 30 boats still came, 1 mile out now, 60 seconds from weapons range. They could launch their rockets and missiles soon. Could overwhelm the close-in defenses through sheer volume of fire. The Revolutionary Guard crews prepared their weapons, fingers on triggers, waiting for the moment. They never got it. At 1,800 yards, the Phalanx systems activated. For CIWS mounts across Lincoln, Mason, and Hudner rotated toward the incoming swarm. Their radar domes tracked targets, computers calculated firing solutions, and the decision to engage took milliseconds. The Phalanx did not ask permission. It identified threats and destroyed them. The sound was apocalyptic, for 6-barreled Gatling guns opened fire simultaneously, each system unleashing 4,500 rounds per minute. The combined firepower created a wall of tungsten, 1,200 rounds screaming down range every second. The lead boats hit that wall and disintegrated. They literally came apart as if invisible hands were tearing them to pieces. The 20mm tungsten penetrators did not punch holes. They tore apart everything. They struck. Bow sections exploded. Engine compartments vanished. Fuel tanks ignited in rapid succession. Boats that had been speeding toward the carrier became expanding clouds of debris, smoke, and flame. The Phalanx systems did not stop. They tracked, engaged, destroyed. Target after target fell before that withering fire. Some boats tried to evade, turning hard. At maximum speed, but the computer controlled. Systems anticipated every move. 10 boats destroyed in 15 seconds. 15 boats in 30 seconds. The Iranian swarm was not just stopped, it was obliterated. A few boats attempted suicide runs. Crews screaming defiance as they pushed throttles to the stops. The Phalanx engaged at 1,200 yards, then 1,000, then 800. None made it past 600 yards. The closest boat to Lincoln absorbed over 200 rounds before it simply ceased to exist as a functional object. Tungsten rain transformed it into shattered fiberglass and twisted metal that splashed into the Gulf like scattered trash. The Super Hornets continued circling above, pilots selecting targets among the boats attempting to flee. Falcon 1 fired his last Maverick at a cluster of 3 boats running at maximum speed toward Iranian waters. The missile impacted the middle boat. The explosion consumed all 3 vessels in a single fireball. Falcon 2 strafed runners with his 20mm cannon, the M61 Vulcan gun, hammering out 100 rounds per second. Shells tore across the water and ripped through speedboat hulls like they were made of cardboard. At 5:26, 8 minutes after the engagement began, silence fell. Not a single Iranian boat remained within weapons range. 18 boats destroyed completely, 22 boats disabled, sinking or abandoned by their crews, 20 boats retreating at maximum speed, trailing smoke and damage. 0 American casualties, 0 American ships damaged. The Abraham Lincoln maintained course and speed throughout the entire engagement, never deviating a single degree. The Seahawks descended to wave top level, scanning for Iranian sailors in the water. Dozens of them bobbed in life vests, stunned, wounded, defeated. The helicopters marked their positions and radioed coordinates to Iranian Coast Guard vessels. Professional respect, international maritime law, but also a message. We can destroy you at will and we can rescue you at will. The wreckage told the story. 18 boats obliterated, some vaporized by Maverick missiles, some shredded by Phalanx fire, some destroyed by 5-inch naval guns, 22 more disabled by Bushmaster cannons and machine gun fire. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard had deployed its most advanced swarm tactic. 60 boats coordinated to overwhelm American defenses. They had trained for months, planned meticulously, committed fully, and they had been destroyed in 8 minutes. Within hours, Iranian state media released footage of brave sailors confronting the American fleet, propaganda for domestic consumption. But the survivors returned with different stories. Stories about missiles fired from 6 miles away, about helicopter gunships that tracked from impossible angles, about weapon systems that fired thousands of rounds per minute with computer precision. Those stories spread faster than official propaganda. For regional geopolitics, the implications are massive. Iran's ability to threaten the Strait of Hormuz, through which 20% of global oil flows, has been its strategic trump card for decades. The swarm doctrine represented Tehran's most credible threat to American naval dominance. This engagement destroyed that threat completely. 60 boats could not penetrate defenses, could not launch weapons, could not even get close. The strategic balance has shifted. Regional allies Saudi Arabia, UAE, Israel now possess concrete proof that American security guarantees carry overwhelming force. Adversaries considering similar tactics received an unmistakable message about the futility of challenging American carrier groups. The Abraham Lincoln sailed south through the Strait of Hormuz without altering course. Training exercises resumed that afternoon. Business as usual for the most powerful naval force ever assembled. The strait remains open not through negotiation, but through demonstrated capability to eliminate any threat. That reality reshapes everything, emboldens allies, constrains adversaries, and reinforces the existing order where American naval dominance remains absolute and unchallenged.